Eres un héroe, pero todavía no lo sabes. Te levantas todos los días sin tener certeza de hacia dónde ir. Lo que sí sabes es que ha llegado el momento de descubrir otro mundo, un mundo en donde se habla otro idioma. Para tu fortuna, tienes expertos y asesores a tu lado. Ahora, a través de una pantalla, eres capaz de aprender ese idioma que te llevará a tocar las estrellas. Pero has de enfrentarte a la más grande de las pruebas, esa que hará que por fin sepas lo que eres en verdad, un héroe. Estudias durante noches y días, superas prácticas una y otra vez. Tus aliados te ayudan y aunque no te sientas listo, ya estás frente a la mayor prueba. Una mañana despegas, superas la atmósfera y ahora sí, observando el planeta desde las estrellas, sabes que eres un héroe. Hoy vas a otra parte del universo. Desde un lugar de este mundo te observan tus amigos, que siempre supieron que triunfarías. Y nosotros, aquí en Richmond Solution, seguiremos educando héroes.
After a pause, we are back. Today we launch our next season of Meet and Greets by Richmond Solution. My name is Jennifer McNamara and I'm happy to be your host today. Hello and welcome to this Meet and Greet presented by Richmond Solution. Today we have a wonderful guest that is going to talk about blended learning in schools. This fabulous guest is Vicky Saumell. Her journey into ELT started when she was 18 years old and she started teaching to support her studies, which were totally unrelated to the teaching of English. A few years later, she realized that this was her passion. So she started to study for a language-related career. So I am pleased to welcome Vicky Saumell into this Meet and Greet. How are you, Vicky?
Hi, everybody. How are you?
I'm very well. I hope that everybody that is listening to us right now is also very, very well. So today you will be talking to us about blended learning, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll be doing some, background on what blended learning is, and we'll be looking at some strategies and why it's a great way to work with.
Okay, perfect. So for this meet and greet, what is going to happen is that Vicky is going to tell us more about blended learning through a presentation, and then we are going to chat with her about in depth about this very particular topic. Don't forget to send also your own questions through the chat that is available right now.
Okay, so hi everybody, it's really good to be here with you today, and we'll be looking at blended learning as a strategy for flexibility. And so we're going to start with our agenda today, and these are some of the things we will be looking at. We will start looking at what blended learning is. We will try to address how we search for the right blend, and then we will talk about the benefits of staying connected in how to address engagement and production through blended learning. So let's get started then. Let's have a look at what blended learning is. And a very simple definition of blended learning is any language course that combines a face-to-face classroom component with online educational materials and opportunities for interaction online. And so this could be any balance of face-to-face and online. So there could be 50-50, but it could also be 60-40, like 80% face-to-face and 20% online, or the other way around. So this is really a very flexible way to combine the best of both worlds, as I call it, because there are certain things which are really good to be done face-to-face, and some things that are really, really easy and beneficial to be done online. So combining both in a way that works for you is a really interesting approach. So how do we go about this? And how do we search for this blend? And how do we search for the right blend and the right amount of face-to-face and online? So first thing we need to take into account is, of course, our students. And so we would need to look at their age, their language level, their needs, their interests. And it's obvious that a blended learning course is not going to be the same for primary school students or 8-year-olds than it's going to be for teenagers or for adults. Not only because of their language level, also because of their technology literacy and how they can manage on their own on the online aspect. So, as I said, first thing we need to take into account is our students. Now, the second thing we do need to take into account is the instructor. And the instructor is as important as the students, because each teacher has her own teaching and learning beliefs. So there are certain principles that we take to heart, and the things how we really truly believe that teaching and learning should happen, and what methodologies and what approaches we align best with. So that will definitely define or influence how we do the blended part, how we blend these two aspects. Now, the third thing we need to take into account is the course we are teaching. And the course we are teaching, we need to look at the aims of the course. So, is it a language course? Is it a conversation course? Is it a skills course? And we need to take into account the contact hours. How many hours a week will we be in contact with our students? And are those contact hours all face to face? And are we going to be adding an online component to those face to face contact hours? And how many more hours can we add? Or is the course designed from scratch to be a combination of face to face and online? Now, in my particular experience, what most teachers have been doing for a long time is they have a face-to-face course they teach that has a certain amount of contact hours. So, for example, I have a course I teach, it's 4 contact hours a week. It's teenagers. And what I do is I add an online component, but those added hours that the online component has are not added to these 4 contact hours a week. So that extends the course to more contact hours. So we need to take into account whether these contact hours are going to be the full package or if we're going to add, and if we are going to add, how much is okay or how much is too much. Now, the last thing we need to take into account is the resources available. And the resources available for us are, of course, print material, books, but also digital materials, any other materials, videos, online digital materials, but also the devices we have at hand, whether it's going to be computers or tablets or mobile devices, because the way we carry out the online component will vary depending on what devices our learners have at hand. And of course, also we need to take into account how stable the internet connection is for this online component. So if we have a very stable internet connection, we could think more about synchronous activities where we all meet online at the same time. And if the internet connection is not so good, we can focus more on asynchronous online components and ideas where students log in at different times. So, as I said, 4 things to take into account when we want to start thinking about how and the balance of this face-to-face and online blend. Let's go over them again. It's the learners, the teacher, the course, and the resources available. All right. So now the question is, I think nobody questions the benefits of having a face-to-face class and the benefit of human contact and of being there in the room with our students. But sometimes I think we question the benefits of online solutions. So I'm going to go over some of the benefits I truly believe are set online learning apart. The first is that an online solution can help to create a supportive environment that goes beyond classroom walls, so that teaching and learning does not start and stop in the classroom during the classes we have in the classroom face to face, but becomes an extension, right? The online solution becomes an extension of the classroom, and that allows us to flow through face-to-face and online components in a more continuous ways. And it allows us to be in contact with our students more easily beyond face-to-face classrooms. It also helps us to collect accurate data from our learners. And this accurate data can help us to provide more effective support. This is especially true and will become obvious when we look at Richmond solution and publishers' solutions for their online products. Now, one more benefit of online solutions is personalizing and differentiating opportunities that are more easily created with online solutions. So we are going to be looking at that. How do we personalize learning so that all our students feel involved? And how can we differentiate opportunities so that if we have a mixed ability classroom, we can make sure we engage every student? All right. Now, something that is really important in that blended learning and the online component of blended learning does so well is being connected. And staying connected is one of the main, I would say, benefits of this. And there are different ways in which we can be connected to our learners apart from our face-to-face classroom. The easiest way is, of course, through an LMS. An LMS is a learning management system. And there are different types of learning management systems. And probably I'm going to skip ahead and show you the next. Probably the most common one and very popular is Google Classroom or any other similar learning management system. Santillana has one that's called Santillana Compartir, and then publishers in general have solutions that are associated with their materials. In the case of Richmond, Richmond Solution offers such online opportunities that we will look at later. Another way in which you can stay connected is through a web conferencing tool. And a web conferencing tool will allow you to create a synchronous opportunity to meet your students outside the face-to-face class. This is not essential for a blended learning component, but it might be if your balance of face-to-face and online tends to be more on the online side. And so you want to add a synchronous aspect to your online component through a web conferencing tool. A web conferencing tool could be Zoom, it could be Google Meet, it could be Skype, it could be anything that allows you to be in the same space at the same time with your students online. And other things that contribute to being connected with your students online are other tools, especially collaborative tools like all the Google apps, Google Docs, Google Slides, Padlet, and other tools that will allow your learners to collaborate online on one task. So let's have a look again. An LMS, which can be a ready-made tool like Google Classroom, or a publisher's solution like Richmond Solution, and a web conferencing tool if you want to add a synchronous aspect to your online component, and other collaborative tools that can be used synchronously or asynchronously. And I will show you that in a minute. Now, one thing I think is really important for a blended learning solution is to create engagement and to sustain engagement with your learners. We teachers are very used to motivating and creating and sustaining engagement in a face-to-face class because we've been doing that for years, and it's probably where we feel most comfortable. Now, creating this engagement online is sometimes a bit more difficult, but we'll have a look at a few concepts that can help you to achieve that. So when we are in an online environment, and if we think about a learning management system where we upload tasks for learners, an online environment can feel very lonely. The learners may feel they are there on their own. So one thing that we can do to create engagement is to create community in this online environment and not to leave students on their own to manage their own tasks in the online component. So Garrison has a framework called the community of inquiry, and what he talks about is that one important aspect of creating community is through teaching presence. And teaching presence in an online component or in an online environment consists of three things. The design of your online component, so the design has to be engaging. The facilitation of discourse, and direct instruction. So what does it mean? Design means the tasks that you upload to your online component. Direct instruction is when you directly teach your students something in an online environment. And the facilitation of discourse is sometimes neglected and is really important because the facilitation of discourse means that you need to mediate the tasks that learners have to do, even if you are not doing direct instruction. That means that you need to be there, you need to check what's happening, and you need to participate or nudge students or encourage others to do certain things so that they become engaged or they keep engaged or they can achieve their aims. Uh, all these are equally important roles to achieve the success of your online component. And it does not mean that you're doing that, the three of them at the same time all the time. But it's important that teaching presence is taken into account as a factor that will probably decide whether your online environment is successful or not. Okay, uh, what happens when we want to encourage production in an online environment? Because it seems quite easy to focus on reading and listening, and technology is really good to share reading and listening tasks and materials. But I think we all agree that learning a language, the ultimate objective of learning a language is communication. And so we definitely need to encourage the production, the productive skills. So how would we go about that in an online environment? Well, I think that um, we need to make a point of setting up individual and collaborative tasks that focus on production, whether it is written or oral. I'm going to start with oral because for a long time, oral production was constrained to the face to face classroom because that was where you saw your learners, that was where you met them, and that was when you listened to them speaking. Now, for many years already, technology has allowed us to move oral tasks to become asynchronous tasks, to move oral tasks away from the face to face classroom. And I'm not saying that you don't have to do oral tasks during face to face. I'm saying that you can also do oral tasks during the online component because technology has allowed students to record their voices and there's video. Okay, so audio and video is a really good tool to set up oral production tasks. Now, for written production tasks, again, collaborative tools are really, really interesting because any of the Google apps that you use, like Google Docs or Google Slides for learners to create something which involves language production, is very easily shared with the teacher and with other learners for consumption or for feedback. So I think production, as I said before, should not be relegated only to face-to-face lessons, but moved as a core component of online environments. The other thing that's really interesting is using blended learning as a way to create a seamless flow between synchronous and asynchronous components. And so you may start a lesson synchronously in your face to face lesson, and then you can assign an asynchronous task to be done as a follow up in your online component, or you may do it the other way around. You may start your task as an asynchronous task, for example, a reading task where students had to read something before the lesson, a kind of a flipped learning technique, and then you move into the face to face to discuss what they read about. So the task starts asynchronously and then flows into the synchronous part of the lesson, which is face to face. And then again, you can flow back into an asynchronous task in your LMS or in your online environment. So the idea that the face-to-face and the online component is integrated and it's only one thing, and that activities flow in and out of your face-to-face and online components is essential to create this idea that everything is a whole, that there's not some added things that can be done or not, but rather that everything fits together and that everything has a reason and that every aspect contributes to more success. The other thing is promoting spoken interactions at all times. And I am based in Argentina, so I am used to my students switching back to the native Spanish. And so it's always like a lot of work to keep them on track and to promote spoken interactions in English as part of the class, even if it's on things that are not necessarily task related. Like trying to make them understand that the more they use their English, whether in a written form or in an oral form, is conducive to their learning because it's more practice. So, modeling online interactions and asking them to make an effort to speak English at all times, even if you sometimes need to switch back to the native language in the case of a monolingual class, and or maybe using their native language for some transfer skills that come from Spanish, uh, trying to use English as much as possible. All right, so let me go back to the options that I mentioned to stay connected. And I'm going to do two examples. I'm going to do one example related to Google Classroom as a mainstream learning management system. And I'm going to do one example related to Richmond Solution. So suppose that you have a class, and so you have a face-to-face class, you meet them 2 or 3 times a week, and you have an accompanying Google Classroom that your class accesses. And so you have your face-to-face class, but you also post what you do on your LMS. And there's a reason why you would do that, for example, so that a student who was absent to your face-to-face class can catch up. That's one thing. You will also be using the Google Classroom to add follow-up tasks or a previous task to something you want to do in the classroom, so as to create this flow of synchronous and asynchronous learning opportunities that we talked about. And a Google Classroom is also a good place to collect students' work and to uh, mark them and collate their marks and share the marks with them. And it's also a great place to communicate with learners outside school hours very easily and very privately. Now, what would you gain from a publisher solution? And in the case of Richmond solution, uh, this would be probably related to a course book you are using. And so your publisher is going to give you access to some digital materials that accompany that. And so that you can assign tasks from the materials you're using to be done online rather than in the class. And again, as you become familiar with these materials, you will be crafting, yeah, the right flow between synchronous and asynchronous tasks to be done in the face-to-face classroom and in the online component. And remember, we talked about personalization and differentiation. So you could assign different tasks to different students depending on their interests and on their needs. You could assign remedial work for learners, and in this way you can create a personalized learning path for each of your learners. Of course, that might be seen as something that takes a lot of time, but it shouldn't be if you are familiar with the materials that you have access to. Richmond Solution also offers, all the digital materials so that playing audios and videos is very straightforward. And it also has a collection of games that are really, really interesting. So if you're working with a publisher and if you're working with the Richmond materials, you may want to take advantage of all the help they will give and they will provide for you. And if you are not, there are other ways of doing it using, a mainstream learning management system. Um, but as I said before, um, and as a closing, conclusion for this very brief blended learning crash course, is take into account your students, take into account how you like and how you believe teaching and learning should happen. Take into account the materials you have, take into account the other resources you have, including the technological resources. And once you have that clear, you can start concocting, like a recipe. You can start mixing in the ingredients you have to achieve your perfect blend of things and to create your personalized blended learning course. And then there is no recipe for this. And if you are trying blended learning for the first time, there's always a trial period, and you need to try things out. We all try things out, even experienced teachers try things out. So don't be afraid of trying things, and you can always go back to the way you did it before or to a different way. And the only way to find the right mix and the right task and the right way of doing things is by trying new things. I hope you want to give blended learning a chance.
Thank you so much, Vicky, for that course that you have provided us. I think it was very interesting and also very informative, especially for teachers that are like starting with this kind of type of teaching. So I have some questions for you related to the logistics
Mhm.
of these kind of processes. One of them is, how do educational leaders such as language coordinators and school directors intervene in this kind of model?
Well, first of all, they should be aware of all the resources they have available. I mean, in the same way as teachers sometimes are on their own to decide all these things, if they are working for an institution where they have a coordinator or a leader, uh, they need to be aware of all this in order to find the best solution for each of the courses they run. And so, as I was saying before, a blended course for young learners is not going to be the same as a blended course for adults or for teens. So, I think educational leaders need to be aware of that and maybe need to, research and make some decisions so that these courses are run, efficiently and consistently across along the institution.
Okay. And I know that you said that there are not like recipes for this kind of approach, right? But is there any limit on the percentage of digital teaching? I mean, is there a way to know what is better for your students?
Um, I would say that that depends on how motivated your students are.
Okay.
So, and also I think age is important
Mhm.
because I don't think you would want to overload young learners with a heavy online component. Also, young learners may not be able to access the online components on their own, so they would have to rely on their parents or guardians or family to help them log on, for example. Uh, so we don't want to overwhelm families as well. So I think we need to take that into account. In the case of teenagers, it depends on how motivated they are. Some don't really want to go online, or they don't have that much time because they do a lot of other extracurricular activities. They do sports or something else. So taking into account and knowing your learners, I mean, that's essential. In the case of adults, maybe that's easier because most adults would take a language course out of their own interest, and so they are probably really wanting to improve very quickly. So that's probably the easiest group to load with an online component.
Okay. I know this is a tough question, but is there a way to motivate, for example, a group of teenagers into this kind of learning?
As usual, I think the way into their hearts, the way into their hearts is knowing them, knowing what they like, proposing things that are interesting for them, and being kind, because not just teenagers, but learners can see through you. They know whether you want to trick them into something that's not really it, or whether you're doing something out of you really believe this is beneficial for them. um, so yeah.
Okay. And speaking about the families, do you think that what should be the participation of parents in this kind of model?
That's a tough question because we cannot rely on parents to be able to do the activities for them, because that's not what we want. And so definitely their involvement should be guaranteeing that, in the case of young learners, that they can access the materials. Yes. And I haven't said this, but it's obvious that online materials should be at the right level. The instructions should be clear enough so that learners do not need to rely on their parents to tell them what they have to do. And activities should be very motivating, probably games, so that they really want to go online to do the online work.
Of course, it sounds logic. And then finally, we have another question related to the preparation of teachers. How should teachers prepare to get the best out of this model of the blended learning model? Is there I don't know, some courses that you recommend or some kind of approach in this way?
To start with, I think most teachers, I'm tempted to say all teachers, but most teachers did a crash course on blended learning during the COVID pandemic, because we all had to go online. We all had to, okay, no more face to face, let's go online. So I would say that most teachers have somehow incorporated some techniques, you know, for remote teaching, for teaching online. And now the important stuff is, because I've seen schools, go from, okay, we are back face to face, let's forget about what we did during the pandemic and go back to where we were. And I do think that that is a missed opportunity. And I think that since most of us had to go online and most of us experienced giving online lessons, what we need to do now is we need to think which of the things we did worked really well online and we can keep doing that. And which are the things where we think face to face works better. And then we can keep that face to face.
Okay. One of the things that I believe that is really important about what you said is that is creating community inside this the digital world. That is not precisely easy, but do you think that the core of creating communities is to know your students?
I think it is. And I think it's also um, being there. And if a student feels they send you a message online and you don't reply, like for 3 days,
Okay.
you know,
Mhm.
it's very easy for them to feel, okay, there's no use doing this because the teacher's not there for me. So I think we need to, I know that most times this online time is not budgeted into your workload. But if we decide to go the blended learning way, and if we decide to have an online component, then we need to commit to check our LMS
Mhm.
and to be there and to encourage our learners to participate and to, yeah, be there for them.
Okay. And finally, to come to a finish, do you recommend any other things to teachers that are like being into this kind of model?
Wow, there are lots and lots of things, and of course it will depend on how you want to go about it. But as I said, if you want to go into Garrison's community of inquiry framework, that is very, very interesting. Um, and then there's lots and lots of materials on remote teaching,
Mhm.
and lots of things were developed during the pandemic, because this became like the main thing we did. So there are lots of courses and materials and professional development webinars and written blog posts about remote teaching that will give you some ideas about how to go about the online component.
Okay. Perfect, Vicky. I thank you so much for being here with us in this meet and greet by Richmond Solution. With all your knowledge, I think our teachers will be like very happy to be with you and also to have learned something about blended learning that is not precisely an easy task, but I think also is an important one.
Yes, one more thing that I would like to say is that
Of course.
sometimes we think that going digital and using digital materials just means taking your print material and putting it online. And what we need to understand is that technology is giving us the opportunity to completely change the way materials are transmitted digitally. So silly example is it's not just a PDF, all right? So it's how do you bring about multimodality and the allowances of technology through video and audio and images to make the online component really stand out and really engaging.
Perfect. With this final message, please, teachers, like follow the instructions of Vicky. I think they are very important and can be very, very healthy to your classes. So, perfect, Vicky. Thank you to be for being here with us today, and hope to see you very soon.
Oh, thank you. And thanks, everybody. See you soon.
Thank you. We hope that you have liked our webinar with this meet and greet. Please follow Richmond Solution in order to know more about these kind of events that will be happening through all year. Thank you so much. I'm Jennifer McNamara. I hope that you have a great day and a great week.
En Richmond Solutions sabemos que eres la guía de tus estudiantes hacia un futuro brillante. Eres su inspiración, mentor y aliado incondicional en el emocionante viaje del aprendizaje del inglés. Estamos aquí para ser tus aliados y acompañarte en esta importante misión de transformar vidas a través de la enseñanza. Comprendemos que para ti esto es más que un trabajo, es una pasión que trasciende. Es un llamado que llena tu corazón y se refleja en cada sonrisa, en cada logro de tus estudiantes. Richmond Solution es tu aliado para que sigas siendo esa inspiración, esa luz que guía a tus estudiantes hacia un futuro lleno de promesas y éxitos. Juntos llegaremos mucho más lejos, traspasando barreras y abriendo nuevos horizontes para que alcancen sus sueños y construyan un mejor futuro. Por eso, en Richmond Solution, creamos soluciones diseñadas para que ellos y tú lleguen siempre mucho más lejos.